Hey everyone, Nam here again. This time I'm going to be doing another miscarriage of justice video. Uh, Hopefully you can hear me better. I'm trying to work on that, but hopefully you can hear me a little bit clearer and louder. This video segment will be covering the McMartin preschool case trial. This was something that happened back in the late 1980s, early 1990s. It was a preschool where initial allegations were started by a mother after she noticed an irritation or like some sort of rash on her, I believe it was her 2-year-old boy's bottom, and she accused one of the workers there. Actually, it was, matter of fact, it was the grandson of the person who owned that preschool. And later on, I mean, this had a big impact, not just for this preschool, but there was a big hysteria then that went around in the late 80s or early 90s all across the country of preschool sexual abuse scandals. And a lot of them turned out not to be true at all. And I'll get to it all followed kind of a similar pattern with what happened with McMartin preschool case. So Judy Johnson was the mother, as I mentioned, that made the initial allegation. Um, the thing about her, though, like she was deemed later on after a while. I think this was after the case happened because she died actually in 1986 from alcoholism, and her credibility was brought into question because she had schizophrenia and probably other mental illnesses, and a lot of things that happen with cases like this, uh, there was a lot of suggestive questionings because a lot of people who were initially interviewed, their kids denied ever being abused. But then this social worker by the name of, I believe I have it right here, Key McFarland, started telling others that, well, others are being abused, and they're saying this. She actually went on the quote and say that they're giving up, quote, yucky secrets. So then that, it was kind of like almost there's a term for it. Repressed, like a repressed memory therapy, in which a lot of the times it's not even allowed to be used in courts because it's just been so debunked. But she more or less used this uh, this approach to plant these memories, if you will, into these child's heads. Uh, and it was so bad that then there started to be allegations of like that the owners and the workers were taking the kids underneath a tunnel inside of the preschool where they would play a game called Naked Movie Star, and supposedly that you know they would then take pictures of the kids naked. And um, but the funny thing about that in that situation is there's never and has never ever been any evidence of child pornography or pictures of that nature found on it. So a big rush to judgment again, and a lot of this case caused a lot of people to suspect that the people that were uh, accused of this be guilty because of all these the number of allegations. Well, then it has to be true. It has to be true. Not You can't have that many allegations and it not be true. And I believe actually, if I'm not mistaken, that the owners actually served time and then they actually were released after all it was found out. This was all a scam. Not It was a farce. I even remember watching a movie about the McMartin preschool trial. I think it was they were in this segment. They were actually in the courtroom. So this was part of the trial in the movie. Uh, and I think it was the grandson, and they were asking him, "Why do you want to work with kids?" And I think if I remember correctly, it showed his attorney say, "Don't say it because you like working with kids, because then they would think, oh, that's him confessing that he likes kids and he wants to abuse them." He was trying to advise him, just say because you needed a job at the time, and that's just how like people work and try to. I always look for words to come up with it on the spot, but to try to manipulate their answer into something that's relatively innocent into something that is malignant. Uh, But I mean, this was a case that if you haven't heard of it though, you need to check it out. I'll leave a link in the description to it below to a couple articles. You can even just type it into Google actually in the McMartin preschool trial, and you can find out a lot of it yourself. It was a huge rush to judgment, miscarriage of uh, justice. No due process was really given initially at the beginning, but even after it was found out that uh, the it was all hoax, basically, more or less. Uh, they still left. They still had to live with that stigma of being probably labeled or had probably their peers in the community look at them differently and probably say things to them because that doesn't go away. That's just going to be tainted. There's going to be a basically a asterisk next to your name and your appearance and your just your livelihood in general. So I mean, this was a terrible. I mean, that's it's even worse. Being accused of using a child is even worse than murder. I mean, murder you can always maybe try to justify, but there's no justification of hurting and harming a child. But I mean, like I said, you should really check this one out if you haven't already. This case had always kind of fascinated me just because of you know the the developments of it because if it's something benign, essentially, a kid might just had diaper rash, and then the mother who had issues of her own tried to say that one of the workers was abusing them, and then it just spiraled out of control. And then you got social workers, you probably got prosecutors too that were probably suggestive questioning. And I think in cases like that, when it's proven that something like that where is false, especially on a case like this, I think they should lose their license. Honestly, well, at least with the social worker Key McFarlane, uh, that's terrible. That's terrible. I mean, that is not excusable at all, and she should not been you know gone without any punishment with that. She should have probably lost her license. I believe it's a woman, Key McFarland, but either way, Key McFarland should have lost their license, not been able to practice because that's not uh, that just destroyed innocent people's lives. And I know uh, it's really a tough. It's one of those tough situations because you really got to be diligent in this whole thing because you got to make sure that it's right. Because on the one hand, if a child is abused, you got to make sure that people who did this crime pay and ultimately, uh, are punished appropriately for a heinous crime like that. On the other hand, if you accuse a person who's of this horrendous crime, and you got the whole, the whole nation, the whole, communities, the whole population and society believing that this person is guilty, and it turns out that this was not true at all, you just basically more or less uh, defame them, and they're never going to get their name back in good standing because of it. So, with that said, as always, let me know what you think. Feel free to, like I said, research it yourself. With that said, as always, I'm Nam, and always use your noodle.